Coming to the final stage on any project is one of the most satisfying things ever. Seriously, especially when it comes to film and you're in the editing room. It's one of the most satisfying moments you'll ever have in doing any film project. At least I have the most satisfying experience in the editing room. Well, first off, it's putting your whole movie together. You're seeing it come to life before your eyes. Yeah, you went through and you might have written the script, or you went through and you were shooting the film and you were on set and you got to see everything, but that's not the gist of the film itself. When you actually get to see the final product all put together on a timeline, it's one of the most satisfying things ever. And that's one of the nice things about editing, is that you get to see the whole thing come together in all of its glory, from just, putting the shots all together and having a severely rough cut, and then putting in sound and music and then playing with it and just massaging as you go. And that's your work of art. Like, editing is a work of art, but also being able to put together the whole film and being able to see it is it's just one of the best things to do. Editing is your final stage. It's your final moment in your production, because it's post-production, right? So you get to see everything all put together. Yes, there's more after that, as in marketing and distribution and so forth. Sure, that's a different side, but this is the final part where you get to see your final art piece, or your project come together in your movie and your story that you're trying to tell. And then I am lost for words, because I love it. I love editing. I never really thought I would have liked editing as much as I do, but it's one of the most satisfying things to do, especially when you have hiccups and so forth and you're in that final stage and you can solve them in editing. Now, granted, you don't want to fix it in editing. You want to maybe change some things to maybe give a different narrative or a different look or whatever it is in the editing room, but it's one of the best stages. Editing is also your final story. I mean, your story's told 3 different times in 3 different ways. You first have your writing idea of the story and the written piece of your story and what you think it is, of what it is at that point in time. Then when you're shooting it, it's still the same story, but it changes a little bit along the way, because obviously you have, location or actors or whatever it is that influence the story in a different way. And then in your edit, that's where you get to have your final story, and you get to make sure that everything you want to tell is inside your edit itself. And it's satisfying. It's satisfying, especially when you've done all of the parts you need to leading up to it, and you have that final stage to put it all together. So I use DaVinci. Well, first off, DaVinci I think is by far one of the best editing programs out there, and honestly it's probably the best in general. Granted, you have Premiere, and you have Avid, which is used a lot in bigger productions, as well as Final Cut. They're all great, but DaVinci really excels in, honestly, a ton of other ways. And then just in some of the recent updates, I mean, they just had a recent update in AI audio that takes out all of your issues and sounds and so forth, and denoising the audio itself using AI, which is by far one of the best things. And then also you can really get down to color correcting on DaVinci. You can't do it so much on Resolve, and you really can't do it on Final Cut. And Avid's a different story. I mean, you can do some stuff there, but DaVinci is really where it's at for color correcting. It is the best tool for it. The amount of tools you get in your color selection is insane when it comes to DaVinci. Just kind of pinpointing one thing you can do in DaVinci, and again, using AI. So when I did Fire, I needed to make the background of my subject or my subject and my background a different color in the beginning when I had my main actor there. So I needed him a little bit darker, but I needed my background a little bit to be a little bit lighter. So there's a really awesome tool that you can use, and you just basically take your cursor and swipe down, and it recognizes an individual, recognizes a person, and basically pulls them out so that way you can make a mask and do whatever you need to on that coloring side, which is, it helped so much on making that piece become what I needed it to be, because originally it wasn't shot for black and white, and I turned it into black and white. So the coloring side of using DaVinci in the edit really helped out so much, and that little AI part that they put in there just, you know, excelled it. And honestly, I could have done it without the AI in Premiere or something like that, but I would have had to gone through and really cut the guy out in every frame, and that would have just been the most tedious process. I just let the AI do the work and cutting it out, and honestly it does a way better job than I do, and then everything else that I go through and do. So it just, that's one tidbit on DaVinci that I love, and I digress on that, but yeah, DaVinci honestly is the best program I feel in editing. Sound, having your going through and editing your sound and so forth, and again, like I said, the AI for noise reduction is beautiful, especially when you need it in certain areas and so forth. And then just the edit itself, I love the layout. Now granted, I feel that a lot of the layouts are pretty much the same, granted, it's just where buttons are different and so forth. But honestly, I like DaVinci's layout and the timeline to go through and edit or put pieces where you need to be. So I use DaVinci, and I know a lot of people are either moving to DaVinci or already are using DaVinci, and with it having a free part to that, and then $300 for the program, or you can get it for free if you bought a Blackmagic, which I did, so I get it for free as well as all the updates, which is by far one of the best things to have. Where when you're going through and you're using Premiere, you're paying a monthly price for it, and it's daunting after a while paying that price. And then Avid's super expensive. Now granted, you can say Final Cut is $300, and then you get all the updates and so forth, but you can only use that on a Mac. So if you want to use a PC and a Mac or whatever, DaVinci, you know, it's $300. It's the same price as Final Cut, and you can use it cross-platform. So, and now they're coming out with mobile. DaVinci is basically where it's at, and that's what I use. Editing is your final story. It's your final piece to tell what you want to tell. Obviously, the story's told in 3 different ways and 3 different times throughout the whole production. You have your writing side of the script, and as it's being told there one way, it's the original idea, and then when you get to set and you're shooting, it's a whole different story, and I should say it's the same story told a different way. And then when you get to the edit, it's the same thing, same story, but you get to really make it what you want it to be, because coloring can have a whole different effect on this. Just cutting from one shot to the next in your time of doing that can give a whole different meaning or whole different feeling to your audience. And that's one of the nice things about editing, is you can really play with your film in a way that you can't do obviously in the other two, in writing or in the shoot, but you really get to make that your masterpiece. This is like putting the icing on the cake side of making a cake, is really making sure that it is a beautiful piece in film, and you get to tell the story that you really want to tell. And that's what editing really does. It allows you to be able to tell that story in a different way. Editing should take time. It should really go through and be honestly about 80% of your work in your whole production, post-production side. Yes, you have the time for shooting and making your script and so forth, and working with your actors and crew and whatnot, but editing, that's where your film comes together. And with all of those pieces that you have to put together, it should really take the most time itself. You're gonna see it in your final result. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's gonna show up one way or another. So I like to take the most time in my edit. Sometimes I would say I'm a little slow in certain instances, but honestly, I do it for good reason, because maybe there was an accident that I didn't get something, or I screwed up on something, or whatever it is, and again, I'm still learning. And the edit really saves me, because I can fix or solve the problems that I have within the editing itself. And again, you will be lacking in other areas that if you rush it too fast, especially if it's just one or two people working on it. Obviously, if you have a team, it's a different story, because each person can work independently on their own thing, but you can't do that when it's about one or two people. It's not to say editing doesn't have issues, because it's got lots of issues, especially your hardware that you are using. I have a pretty decent PC that I do a lot of my editing on, as well as a giant computer screen that is to the left of me that's huge, to be honest with you. But I want a big, large area to go through and edit. And some people use multiple monitors, and I just don't have the luxury to do that, so I have one giant one. But hardware really matters in your edit, especially not just your visuals, but your screen visuals. But you also the hardware and using for visuals. I mean, you need a good graphics card, you need a good processor, you just need a good overall computer to really use within editing. Now, there obviously is a difference between Mac and PC, and some of the newer Macs, well, obviously, you know, you are going to be paying a pretty penny for, and needing a piece of hardware to do the editing itself. So yeah, you can get a good MacBook Pro, pretty much all maxed out. It's going to cost you about $4,000-ish, and that'll get you by. But if you have a feature film and you're trying to edit on a MacBook Pro, it's probably gonna crash, and that's one of the biggest things that happen in the editing room, is just crashing on you. And that's gonna happen. And even on my PC, which is, again, I don't remember what graphics card and so forth I have, and I think I have an i7, which is the newer version and so forth. But anyway, I still crash at the same time too, but I am crashing on longer projects and a little bit, you know, projects that are needing more attention within coloring and so forth. And when I'm shooting, I'm usually trying to shoot on B-RAW, because I just like the ability to change or add things within B-RAW that you can't get with ProRes or, you know, an MOV or MPEG-4 file. Obviously those two, but you just don't get with ProRes in general. And I love the ability of being able to use the raw sense. Now granted, I know Red has the raw, but Blackmagic has B-RAW, which honestly you get a lot of similarities in. But I like having that ability to change or add things while I'm in the editing room. Granted, now there's another area it's an issue, and that's storage. And you need lots and lots of storage, and that's another issue, and it can be very pricey in paying for some of the cards that you need for any camera. I use some of the SanDisk cards. I have a 500 and two 1 terabyte cards that sometimes when I want to shoot and I'm running B-RAW, I fill them bad boys. And I have stacks of external hard drives and just hard drives with old footage on, because I don't like throwing it out. I like to keep it because I might be able to use it for somewhere, honestly. So yeah, it does eat up on storage, and if you're using ProRes, yeah, it eats up storage a good bit, but it doesn't eat up as much as what B-RAW or RAW would. And that's, again, that's another area you need to make sure you're worrying about when it comes to editing. And obviously, if you don't have the money for it, I get that. And I really don't have the money for it. So I try to do what I need to best and save up for those areas. And that's really what you should do is, again, really max out your editing suite so that way your final project can be exactly what you want it to be. Make it your film. This is your film. Editing is where it's at. This is your this is your final stage in the whole production, and you should really hone in on the edit. And again, just take your time. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it so much. I love doing these videos each and every week about really my progress within film and the film industry and everything about it. In this video about editing. So make sure you go through and you hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, as well as liking this video. So I will talk to you soon. Take care.